Without further ado, let me introduce our first of three speakers of the evening, Topher Field. Come on up and say a quick hello.
Thank you to Rebel News. Thank you to this establishment. It's wonderful that we can be here. Really appreciate it. You know, when Avi asked me to say a few words, I knew immediately that he was scraping the bottom of the barrel. And that I have an obligation now to give him a hard time in return. So that's what I'm going to do. He's the man of the hour, and I think deservedly so. But I want to start with a confession. I have never been more wrong about anyone in my life than what I was about Avi. See, I should have known better. I became an independent journalist in 2009. I was doing it before it was cool. Yeah. For those that have forgotten the history, YouTube only started in 2004, and it was a dating site for the first couple of years. Right. Within a couple of years of YouTube actually being a thing, I was on it. And I should have learned not to trust the mainstream media, but silly me, when they came out with their hit pieces on that Avi Yemeni figure that was skulking around the shadows of my city and was like a bit of a threat to me. I was the big dog in town, and there's some Avi Yemeni dude creeping around now. I believed the hit jobs. And I regret to say, but I did. And I was actually quite relieved when COVID hit. That was a real black swan event, and out of the blue, and COVID hit. And I recognised very early on that the lockdowns were an overreaction. I began to speak out. I began to protest. I became a lawbreaker for the first time in my life. And I was relieved that at least in those very first few weeks, Avi came out and said, "Okay, guys, we don't know what this is. Maybe we should be careful. Maybe we should be locking down. Maybe we should." You know, take the. I'm like, oh, thank God he's not on the same side as me. Then he saw the evidence change and new information came in. And he went, hang on, maybe I was wrong. And he admitted that maybe he was wrong and he changed his mind. And that should have been the first sign to me that maybe I was wrong about him. But I missed that signal. And I began protesting a lot, and Avi started showing up and covering the protests. And I didn't register as a journalist. I wanted to participate in those protests and be an activist. So he had sort of a little bit of protection of being a journalist. I'm like, oh, that coward just in there with his little press pass. You know, hiding behind the press pass. Well, then, of course, he goes and gets arrested before me. I'm like, I'm starting to feel offended now. What's wrong with me? And he got arrested a second time and a third time. And he didn't just get angry about it, he got even. And he extracted an apology from Victoria Police. Yes. Huge. Congratulations to Ezra News for standing by Avi through all of that, because unfortunately there are other new media and alternative media organisations that we could name, but I won't, that don't stand by their people when they get into trouble. Yeah. I'm not going to name anybody. But Rebel did. And then I came to directing Battleground Melbourne, which is a documentary all about that era in Melbourne. If you don't know, battlegroundmelbourne.com, you can watch it for free. And I had to decide who I was going to interview for that. I went, oh crap, I can't tell the story without interviewing that arsehole Avi Yemeni. In fairness to him, by then he'd done an awful lot of work and he'd been there and he'd covered all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I guess I have to, you know? So I extended the invitation to him, and I regret to say he accepted. And he showed up in the studio that day. We were filming illegally. It was illegal for me to be working in there because I'm unjabbed, and so were many of the guests that we were videoing, and it was all very clandestine and secret. And he showed up that day, and I discovered that I had no idea who Avi Yemeni was. Yes. And that I had been wrong about him in almost every single way. And I'm glad to say I was. What I found was a man of incredible self-awareness. All the things that they create, oh, he's over the top, he's this and that. Yeah, he is. It's true. And he knows it. And he loves it. And he owns it. And it's a part of who he is. That's a part of why we love it. And I discovered that so many of the lies that I believed were just such twistings that had maybe this much truth somewhere way down the bottom, and everything else was just a twisted mess that they'd made. And I've been sucked in by it. It was a real wake-up call for me. And I'm grateful that you gave me the opportunity to realise just how much I've been sucked in as well. Then, of course, we became friends, and he wrote his book. And he sent it to me for a review, and I'm very pleased to say I'm the only one in the world who's done a proper, thorough review on the book that you're going to be able to buy here tonight. I didn't just read it and talk about it. I did what no other book reviewer on earth has done with his book. It's a critical question that you're all wondering, which is how well is this going to burn when it gets thrown on the pile? Because we all know sooner or later it's coming. They're going to start emptying the shelves, and Harvey's book is going to be on that list that's going to end up on the pile, and I'm pleased to say it's going to burn very well. The paper stock is really quite lovely. It burns very, very well. But I want to say, you're a discovery for me, and I'm so grateful that I was proven wrong. I'm so grateful that I discovered the real Harvey Yemi. And I'm grateful that you've written that book, because what I actually discovered in reading that book was the reason I didn't like you early on is basically because you're me, but stupider. So I read the book and I discovered that Ivy had a toxic relationship with someone with borderline personality disorder, and I wasted 3 years of my life on exactly the same person. But you know what? I wasn't stupid, not the same person. Same exact same odd person. But I wasn't stupid enough to marry her, right? So there's that. Then I joined the army as well, but I was smart enough to do it in Australia. You know what's unique about the Australian army? There's no wars in Australia. So I want to thank you for being there for all of us during the protests, for writing this book. It's an absolute revelation. I commend it to everyone. Please read it.